Welcome back to another episode of The Anxious Creative. Today is no different, I was going to say. I don't even know what I was going to say. Today's a big one. I have my friend Kourtnee on, and we're going to be talking all about, you've guessed it, how she failed her way to success. Kourtnee is an amazing individual. I'm going to let her tell you all about herself, but we had so much fun. And it's funny, I've been following Kourtnee for a while here on Instagram, but I'd always been shy and nervous to reach out. And when I did reach out and invite her to the podcast, she was thrilled and so excited, and we got to connect, and now we're friends. So I'm really excited for you guys to hear more about Kourtnee's journey to success through failure and all the in-betweens. She's an amazing individual, and you are in for a treat. So buckle up, friend, and let's dive in. Welcome to the Anxious Creative podcast, Kourtnee.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have this conversation. I feel like I've been watching you, but we haven't really actually connected fully yet. And you just got engaged, which was so exciting. You must be like floating on cloud nine still.
It's definitely hard to get back into work because you feel like you're on vacation for a whole weekend, but like you're here, but it just feels so much more different. You
Yeah.
know, you're like on a high.
And you're like, why isn't the rest of the world like surrounding me right now?
I
Have
do feel
you?
that way.
Yeah. You're like, wait, everyone stop. Have you ever listened to Taylor Tomlinson? She's a stand-up comic.
Yes.
And she has this like one bit that she's like, when I got engaged, it was like this thing in my brain went, "Whoop, am I better than everyone else?"
I kind of I don't want to admit that, but I kind of was like, everyone, pay attention to me
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. And she's like, I was going through Target and someone would be like, "Do you need help?" And she's like, "No, somebody loves me."
You got to send me that one. That's
It's
good.
so good. I think you'll love it. Okay, well, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast, and I'm gonna get into a bunch of questions for you. But for people who do know you already, what
Mhm.
is something people would be surprised to find out about you?
Mm. So I feel like I definitely am like a people pleaser,
Mhm.
which I feel like me and you have so much in common with the ADHD and people pleaser, but I can be very direct and very blunt. And people, when I'm super nice all the time, I could just flip a switch and be like, just like when I'm anxious, I get very like people please. But when I'm not feeling anxious, I'm direct, I'm blunt, I'm kind of cutthroat sometimes
Yeah.
in the best way possible.
Sometimes I don't know I'm being like, if I'm anxious, I actually will sometimes be more direct because I'm so anxious I don't know what to say, so it just like blah, 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 and I don't hear it how it comes across.
My girlfriend sometimes like, Courtney, that was rude. And I was like, no, it wasn't. It was like to the point. Like they needed to hear it.
Yeah. And I find like in Western culture, it is a lot of like being nice, overly nice to people's faces and like terrible behind their backs. Where like being, I remember, I don't know what book it was that I read, but it talked about an Eastern European coming over to North America and being so confused. Like, you don't like that person. Why are you nice to them? Why are you saying all those nice things? Where in Eastern Europe, like they're like, if you like, you're just direct. Not that like
Yeah.
not liking someone, but I can't remember the part of the book, but basically like we sugarcoat things and like kind of like tiptoe around things. And so when
Mhm.
directness happens, people feel like it's abrupt, but it's just clear.
Yeah, you get it. And it's crazy because like obviously the older I get, the more like I just started my own business, the more direct I have to be.
Mhm.
And sometimes they're like, God, Courtney, like I'm like, I don't know how else to say it. Like I'm not here to like cater to your anxiety. Like, like I have
Right.
anxiety and I don't expect people to like cater to me. Like I'm
Mhm.
just telling you how it is. Like how you take it is how you take it. I'm not, I know for sure I'm not being mean. And that's like the biggest thing.
Yeah, an intention versus impact. And also,
Yes.
I wonder if like cuz I think our society, but also I was like brought up in like very heavily a church upbringing.
Hmm.
And there was a lot of like read between the lines. And so when you're direct, I find a lot of people are like, what are you actually trying to say? And I'm like, no, no, no. Like, don't read into this. This is this.
Yeah.
Like so often it's like people are trying to read into like, what are you actually meaning? Are you actually like trying to tell me to fuck off? And you're like, no,
Hmm.
I'm just telling you point blank.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that about you. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, so for anyone who doesn't know you, can you give us a quick little synopsis of who you are, how long you've been in the industry, a little bio?
Yeah. So my name is Courtney, aka the color chemist. I have been doing hair for I think going on 11 years, but 10 years. Been doing social media for about 8, and I absolutely love it. It's such a passion of mine. I thrive in, like, the low maintenance type of looks. I am originally from Alabama, Roll
Mm.
Tide, and I moved to Ponte Vedra, Jacksonville area with my dad when I was 12, and he raised me, so I think that's where I get my really a lot of bluntness and, like, to the point, because I was raised by my dad, and he doesn't give a fuck. He is just boom, just to the point, so and
I
I've
love
been here
that.
ever since, and I love it so much in Florida. I'm so happy that we ended up here. I love Florida.
Yeah, I've never been to Florida, but I'm hoping to get there soon.
Wait, where are you at?
I'm up in Canada by the Rocky Mountains. Mhm.
Oh, shit. I literally was just talking to I guess I'm just gonna call her my
Fiancé?
wife. I hate that word. I hate it.
I
It
do
sounds
too.
so snooty.
I will yeah, the fiancé word, I'm like, "Bleh, bleh." I would be like, "The person I'm going to marry,
Yeah,
my
I'll just
future
call her my
spouse."
wife.
Yeah.
But we were just talking the other day. I'm like, I want to go to Canada, I know there's so many artists there, and then Fremar to go
Mhm.
there. So seems
Well,
like a great place.
open invite. I'm a
Heck
little bit
yeah.
farther I'm, like, on the other side of the country than Fraymar, but
Oh,
yeah, because 'cause you're on the East Coast. That makes more sense.
got you.
Um, okay, so you've been in the industry for 10 years. What got you into being a hairstylist or a hair are you a stylist or are you a colorist solely?
I'm a stylist. I mean, I do cut, color. I used to do weddings, but I recently just stopped because it didn't bring me any joy.
Mhm.
I got in the industry. I originally wanted to be a sign language interpreter. I was really good at it, and it brought me so much passion. But my dad is very blunt to the point, and he was like, Courtney, you are going to waste money by going into college and taking all these courses because like you hardly passed high school. No offense or anything, but like yourself. I could study for 8 hours and still bomb a test. It
Mhm.
just wasn't me. I'm very visual. He's like, I just want you to hear me out. Go to hair school. I'll pay for you could stay here. You just get a job, go to hair school. All you gotta do is pay for your car payment. That's it. And see if you like it. Just see. If you don't, go to college. I just know you and I
Mhm.
think you'd be really good at it. Sure as shit, he was right.
Yeah.
He was right, and so ever since then, I loved it, and now I have so many friends who are in the deaf community, and so they come to me so I can kinda still do a little bit of both.
That's, like, such a niche market that would be so helpful,
Yeah,
right?
and so now, like, with social media, I make sure to, throw tidbits in there on how you can be more accessible to the deaf community. So if you have somebody, because I've seen it where they're like, "Oh no, I don't want to take that person." I'm like, "There's nothing wrong with this person. They just can't
Mhm.
hear. Why are we treating this person any different?" So I really use my platform for a lot of different things, but that is one in
Mm.
particular that I really want to focus on because I feel, I have like one of my best friends. She's deaf, and just to hear the pain and, like, her feeling like nobody cared about her and just having her hair destroyed, like, crushes my soul. So,
Mhm. Yeah, because I was gonna ask what got you into learning sign language?
I saw someone just signing, and I was just so uneducated, and I was like, "What is that? Blah, blah, blah," and they're like, "Well, she's deaf," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I wanna talk to her so bad," and I'm not somebody who goes up and talks to a random person. I'm very actually introverted, and I took the class, and I went up to her one day, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, hi, I wanna practice. What's your name?" And we just became, like, the best of friends.
Oh.
And, yeah, Gigi, she's amazing. She was younger than me too, so she was just so shocked that somebody wanted to, like, get to know her.
Well, and probably take
So,
the effort to learn how to communicate with her.
yeah, and I still talk
Huge.
to her all the time, and she even helps me. For example, like, I lost a lot since high school of sign because I, don't practice it every day, and she gave me this big binder. She's like, "If you ever have any questions, it's got all the knowledge in it.
Oh,
If you forget," and so sometimes I'll pull it back out, and I'll be like, "Oh, this is a sign," you know, and do
that's
that.
beautiful.
Thank
That's really cool.
you.
I was just thinking, I wonder how before FaceTime, how would deaf people communicate via phone?
Well, they do have video relay service. So it's through your TV and they make a phone call and the video will come out. So when you pick up the phone to call somebody, it goes through the relay service
Oh,
and they say, "Hi, my name is blah 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 from blah 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 relay service. I'm making a call from this line. This is Destiny that's calling you." And
yeah,
then, you'll start speaking and then it'll pause, she'll interpret and from the
right.
TV.
Because I remember working at a salon once where we got a phone call saying, like, someone was calling
Mhm.
in with that. Oh, that's so
Yeah,
cool. Totally on a
I
tangent
know.
here, but I love
I I
it.
love it too. It's such a passion of mine.
Yeah. This is my only experience with sign language, and this is I don't know if you grew up in church or not, but if you didn't, then this will mean nothing.
I haven't
But we
experienced
would,
it.
like, learn the sign language to, like, worship songs and thinking it was so
Oh,
cool. But, like, I also, like I was like, "I don't know if this is for accessibility or to, like, make it kinda look cool." Like, have someone I don't know. Like, me and my friend were talking about it the other day because we both kinda, like, left that and we're like, "Was that just, like, tokenizing
yeah,
people's, like, disability, like, this is awful, but yeah.
yeah. I
So
we used to, I mean, this school had, like, a club, it was called Talking Hands, and everybody could join in it, and then, like, twice a year, they would do this whole we would do, like, sign songs in front of the whole entire school, and it was so fun, but signing
yeah.
songs is fun. That's my favorite.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. Okay, so I feel like I just, like, learned so much about you. Um, so because right now I'm doing a series on how people failed their way to success, I'm curious, and I know this is like asking you to be extremely vulnerable, so only share what you feel comfortable sharing. But what has been like the biggest mess up, fuck up,
Mm.
failure that you've had, whether it be personally, professionally, or anything that you've had in your life that isn't something that you always want to highlight, but you know it's part of the journey that got you to where you are right now.
There's been lots of fuck ups, so I'm like, where do I start, you
Yeah.
know?
I like whenever I
Mm.
think of it, like, I fried a girl's hair off once
I was
completely.
literally about to tell you a story how I fried somebody's hair off. That's great.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
So what
Um,
happened?
so she was deaf and she came in and she knew me for a couple of years and I was pretty much brand new. So I didn't know how to do a thorough consultation. I was people pleaser. I just wanted to make her happy. But then like I did it one time, but she wanted to go a little lighter. So she came
Mm.
back in for her second session and I'm taking her back to the bowl and she wanted to put purple on top. And so she goes back in the bowl and I like rinse it out and I was like, "Oh my god." And I started like freaking out. I'm like very like an expressive person, so I was like, "Hide your face, hide your face." And I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, like I don't know what to do right now." And so it's like falling off in the bowl. And I'm like, so I wash her. I'm like, repair, 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 just like shampooing her. And then I just put the purple on her. I'm like, maybe this will help. I didn't know anything. So get to the back to the chair and I start taking round brush and I'm like, it's just like coming off chunks in the brush. And I was like, oh, like you need a haircut. She's like, yeah, that's fine. And so I cut some of her hair off and I let her leave. I know this is terrible, but I didn't know how to do anything. I couldn't even process what happened. And so she leaves and I call the owner. I'm like, listen, you're probably gonna fire me, but like I fried somebody's hair off. She's like, Courtney, you didn't. If you fried somebody's hair off, it'd be coming off in the brush. I'm like, no, it came off in the
What?
brush. No, her whole done. Like my brush, I had to like throw it on the side.
Yeah, like, hide it?
I was panicking. And so then she's like, well, just let her call. Like, just take it in. I literally didn't sleep the entire night. I was having like nightmares about it. So a week later, she messages me and she's like, "Hey, I think I want to come back in. I want to shave my head." And I was like, "Oh my god!" And so I just like word vomit. I was like, it was me. Like I did it." And she's like, I was like, here's your money back. Take all the money. Here's a bunch of products for free. I just was like, here's my
Hush money, don't tell anyone.
I was like, here's my firstborn. Like, you can have literally anything you want, and I'll give it to you. And she didn't say anything about it. She was just like, okay, like, I did it before. I just want to do it again. It's just unhealthy. And I was like,
Oh, wow.
and I shaved her head off. It was like to a three, like all over. no, like, and she looked so good with it. Literally, I was like, "I never wanna do hair as long as I live. This is the most embarrassing thing. I am the worst hairstylist ever." And a couple years later, she messaged me and booked with me again. I was like, "You don't want to come with me." "No."
I'm worst, yeah. That's interesting. The girl that I fried her hair off, like, I did open air balayage, and within 10 minutes, she was like, "It's getting hot in here." And I was like, "I thought it was like our spicy conversation." And she's like, "No, like, it's like crackling and my neck is sweating." And I leaned forward and it was like I like opened up an oven at 450, like that heat. And I was like, "Oh my God." And it was open air, 10 minutes. So I like, thank God I started at the nape, but I used to have, I called them daymares that I would be like, what if I would have started at the front? Like, that would have just, like, come right off. Because I went to the sink, it was palest yellow, rinsed it off, brought her back to the chair, combed it, and, like, the comb just like, the hair just, like, went with the comb, and my stomach just flipped, and because I was in a new city and I'd never worked, I was self-employed when I, like, moved here, and I was like, "I'm gonna do the ballsiest thing and build a clientele from scratch in a city where I knew no one." And within 12 weeks, I was fully booked, and within a year, I had my own salon downtown. Like, I did all these crazy things, but I had no community, and I was really loud on Instagram, and I feared that every hairdresser in this city hated me because, like, I wasn't connecting with them, but no one was
Mhm.
like, you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like a superiority thing, it was an anxious thing.
It's
But sometimes when
okay.
you're anxious, it comes across the other way. Anxious and introverted comes across like, I don't wanna talk to anyone. So I was so scared that everyone was gonna find out in the city that clearly I had faked my way through 16 years of a successful career, and this was proof that I sucked. And so I offered $2,000 worth of extensions. I put in on my own cost. And within 2 weeks, she was having anxiety and like having adverse, like psychological stuff can like manifest so physically. She was getting like welts on her head. And I'm like, there's no way, like, even where extensions weren't. So we took them out 2 weeks later. I gave her all this product because it was less about making her happy and more scared that she was going to tell another hairstylist in the city. And I was going to be caught as like a fraud and don't know what I'm doing.
God,
Isn't that
we have so much in common.
right? Like the imposter syndrome. But I remember like early on in my career forgetting to color an entire quadrant of a root retouch. And because I didn't have the confidence to be like, "Oh my god, I just told," like, even, like, recording this morning where, like, for everyone that's listening, like, I messed up our time, and, like, I could own it now, where in the past I would've been like, "Oh," like, made up an excuse to try to,
Your
like,
fault.
yeah, protect my ego. "Oh, must've been a spelling mistake. I meant EST, not PST."
Mhm.
But back then I didn't have the confidence to be like, "I totally forgot a quadrant. Like, can you come back?" Because that's what I would do now, but at the time, I'm like, "I suck." So I just let her go with, like, the back quadrant knot. And
I
I was
think we've
like,
all done that.
"Oh god," right? So, you've been in the industry 10 years. You're self-employed?
Yeah, now I am.
Recently?
Yeah, like, as in it's like 2 months ago.
Oh my god, congrats.
Thank
That's
you.
amazing. So, was there any fear in that?
Oh my gosh, yes. I was, like, shitting my pants, like, every day.
Yeah.
I was like, "Do I know how to run," like, imposter syndrome. I'm like, "Everybody hates me." Like,
Mm,
that's all I ever thought. Like, "Everybody hates me, nobody likes me, blah, 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 blah," and I just honestly, it's so crazy because now being on my own, I have so much less anxiety.
and I also
Like,
think with ADHD, it's like you can focus better when there's no one else in the room. Like, I used to only be able to hear my coworkers' conversations, not the person in my chair talking to me.
yeah, and, like, now I can just take one person, I don't have to double book, and I make more money, and I'm like, "Wait, what? This
Yeah.
can happen?"
So I'm curious, has your definition of success changed over the years? And what is your definition of success?
Yeah. I mean, definitely everything has changed, as the older every year that you get, you're so much wiser and, like,
Mhm.
you just grow so much. I think success, like, just comes with time, and I feel like failure I don't feel like it's failure, I think it's all just, like, part of the journey, you
Mhm.
know? I feel success is just if you're making a change, if you're growing, you're succeeding, you know? If you're just and I even think I'm like, "Well, what happens if I have a family one day? Am I still, like, succeeding?" And it's like, "Yeah, like, I still am. I'm making a change every day. I'm growing every day." And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be like I still have issues with this, but I'm like, "Oh my gosh, it's not a physical change. I need it to be a big change," you know? I feel like I'm always not doing enough, but I am doing enough.
Yeah. It's funny because I remember sitting and I've shared this story a million times on my podcast, so for anyone that listens regularly, sorry. But I was sitting in my therapist's office in 2016, like, talking about feeling like a failure, and she's like, "Well, I'm curious, how do you define success? Like, how will you know when you've become successful?" And I was like, how will I know? And the picture that like, the visual picture that came in my mind was, like, the horse with, like, the carrot dangling in front of it, and I was like, "Oh, in my head, success is out of reach." So anytime I achieve something, it's not successful because who am I to like, I'm just Dawn. From a small town. I'm
Yeah.
anxious, I'm awkward, I'm introverted, I used to be really shy. Like, so if I can do something, anyone else can do it, and if anyone else can do it, it mustn't be successful because it's not doesn't make me special. Therefore, anytime I like have a goal and I reach it, all of a sudden it's like, well, no, like success in my brain is unattainable.
Yeah.
So it's always the next
We're
thing. And when I hit
always
it, I
looking
don't
for that.
celebrate it because I'm like, well, if I can do it, anyone can do it. It's not that special. And it was a
Mhm.
weird epiphany of like, oh, I don't celebrate my achievements.
You should.
Yeah, I
You're
should.
amazing.
Thanks. Sorry, that wasn't like a bait to, like, tell me how amazing I am.
No,
Yeah,
I
I
feel
was
like
curious,
I'm
like, do you ever feel that way? Like, where you were like, if you have a family, like, will I still be successful? I was brought up almost under or the interpretation I took from my upbringing, let's say that, because I don't wanna say anyone directly said this to me, but how I, absorbed what I was taught and what was shown to me was as a woman, success was becoming a mother and a wife. And so I am neither.
Oh.
And I've like overachieved in my career as a way to try to prove that I'm worthy outside of those things. And it was like, oh, wow. So I'm
I
curious, like, what do you define success career wise mainly?
So I guess like looking kinda like hearing from yours, I kinda got like a spark in my brain, and it was
Love it.
like the way I was raised, I grew up in a very chaotic household, and my relationship and friendships, like, have always when I was younger, it was everything was always like toxicity. So, like, I was raised as like hustle mentality and like you need to work every day and you don't take days off and you just keep going, you keep working. So I'm still learning to like hold the reins because sometimes
Mm.
I'll like my wife just had a conversation.
Fiance.
Oh, sir. We we had a conversation and she's like, "Dude, you need to chill. Like, you cannot be for people. You're trying to be an educator. You're trying to be an influencer. You're trying to be a stylist full time. You want to cater to me. All your friends, like your friends, are gotta wait, dude. Like,
Mhm,
you need to take a chill pill. Look
mhm.
at the longevity. You want to do all these things. You cannot physically do it. And so I realize sometimes I have to be like, okay, so I'm not taking any new clients. I'm gonna work 4 days a week, slowly go down to 3 days a week. It'll weed itself out and focus on education. So I have that time. It's hard, but I was raised definitely by I saw success as you work 7 days a week. And,
Mhm.
if you had a cancellation, well, you make up for it on another day. You got to go back in and you just got to keep working until you make that money up. Like
Yeah.
you basically work like a dog.
Yeah, I remember thinking, like, when people were like, "You're doing so great," I felt like I had to justify it with telling them how tired, exhausted, and burnt out I was. Like, "Oh my god, thanks, I'm so tired." Or I thought I was only worthy of success if I was pushing myself to the limit, stretching myself super thin because who I was wasn't enough
Mhm.
to be able to have balance. Like, the only way and especially in our industry where it's kinda looked down as you can't be like, my own hairstylist in high school was like, "Please don't become a hairstylist if you wanna financially provide for yourself."
Ooh.
Yeah, and then, like, I overheard my parents talking and my mom saying, like, "Well, what if she gets married and has 3 kids and her husband dies? How's she gonna provide for herself?" And I know that's coming from a place of, like, probably my mom, like, projecting her own scenario, right? Like, because like,
Fear.
I mean, my parents are both alive, and that wasn't a scenario that they had to go into, but, like, like, wanting me to have security, and our industry doesn't promote a lot of security. But neither does having a corporate job, they can fire you at any time.
Mhm.
And so it's really interesting, but then that, like, putting into, like, I'm gonna prove them wrong, but thinking the only way like, oh, when I started making 6 figures, I was so proud, but I was, like, working, like, 2 full-time jobs in my business.
Yes. 100%.
And so, how can I ask you how old you are?
I'm sorry, I had to think because I just turned 31.
31. Awesome. Yeah, so when I was 31, so I'd been self-employed I went self-employed when I was 27, and then 4 years later I like jumped ship, moved to a new city where I knew no one and started from scratch. But like made six figures my first year. Within a year, had like my own downtown salon, 600 square feet, fully booked months in advance. But I did it differently that time because I was like, okay, I've already done this the wrong way the first time.
Mhm.
Um, I'm really good at going on tangents, clearly.
I am too. It's because I've, like, realized it's because we're passionate about it, so when we're passionate, we just can't stop because we could talk
Yeah.
about it all day.
And you know what's funny? Like when I talk to another ADHD person, it's like we track with each other. It's like, "Oh, no." They're like, "Sorry, I, like, went off on topic." I'm like, "I followed.
Yeah,
I'm there with you."
exactly.
I love it. Okay, the question was, what do you define as success? So in conclusion, what if you had to define what success is right now in your life, what would you say it is?
Like, as long as you're growing, you're successful.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like yeah, as long as you have, like, the right I let me think about how to word this. As long as you have the intention to wanna keep growing, I
Mm.
feel like you're successful.
Yeah.
As long as you keep working on yourself,
Yeah.
bettering yourself, you're successful. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be, like, a proven action, like, right here, like, you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
when I go to therapy, I'm like, "I feel successful." Like, I did my duty to grow out of old toxic behaviors and to do better. Oh, shit. My AirPods, sorry.
I love it.
But, yeah, just growing. As long as you have good intentions and then you keep working on yourself, it doesn't have to be like, uh, a quick fix type of
Yeah.
thing.
And it's like taking like the fuck ups, the failures, the mess ups,
Mm,
the speed bumps, the things that not your fault, but you've had to move through, and like, how can I use this to become a better version of myself? Because I always
correct.
say like the person I am today, I would not be without some of my biggest self-induced mistakes, some of
Mhm.
my biggest failures, and some of the shit I've had to go through that I should have never had to go through. But I've like decided to look at it and go, how can I use this for the betterment of my future and other people's lives?
And then you look back and you laugh at those times instead of,
Mhm.
like because you remember you used to tell the story and you used to, like, cringe and then have so much self-doubt, and then now you're, like, laughing about it. You're like, "I
Yeah.
know how to, like, go about it now. It's not like that anymore."
Yeah,
And then
like, I
you
remember
see
being
how
like,
far you've come.
"I will never tell anyone this story, ever,"
Yeah.
right? And then now it's like,
Mhm.
okay, or like, I can't wait to the day that okay, this is such a random story, and I'm gonna share it with you, and it's totally embarrassing, and it has nothing to do with, career, but I remember sleeping over at a friend's house in grade 6, and I peed the bed. In grade
Aw.
6, like, that's old, and I remember being like, "I will never tell anyone about this ever," because I was mortified, like, how do you I would have been 12 or something, but then, like, fast forward, me and my friend were living together when I was 21, and I don't know, this is, like, the most we weren't party kids either, we weren't, like, going out and drinking, but I
Mhm.
remember one day where I was like, "Oh my god, I just peed the bed again," like, at 21, and she's like, "I just peed the bed last week." Like these things that can be, like, in the moment. I like using this as the example of, like, you fry someone's hair off or, like, something so intensely embarrassing happens that you're like, "I don't even know how this happened and, like, shouldn't
Mhm.
happen, and I'm embarrassed that it happened because, like, logically it shouldn't have." But, like, in time, you're able to look back with perspective and go, "It's
Mhm.
not as bad as I thought it was." Like, hair grows back. Like,
Yeah.
I obviously didn't go to the bathroom before I went to sleep or whatever. I was sleeping really heavy. I don't know who pees the bed at 21 years old, but I did, and so did my roommate, so I don't know. But, like, in the moment, and I guess maybe I'm saying this for anyone listening, like, if you're in the thick of something right now and you feel embarrassed, you feel like a failure, you feel like you
Mhm.
fucked up, you feel like there's no way that you could ever move past this or beyond this, or you wanna change careers, or you wanna move cities, or you just, like, wanna run so far and so fast away from whatever your current circumstance is because it feels unbearable, you will be okay.
Yeah, and also, like, I used to run from my feelings, like, whenever I felt like that, and I would just, like, black it out, like, "That never happened, that never happened." But the biggest thing is if you sit with your feelings and realize what happened and talk
Mhm,
about it with somebody who you know is never gonna yes, that is never gonna judge you,
mhm,
you know, and truly sit with it, all the feelings, sad, angry, all the things. And as
mhm,
long as you've, admitted to it, you've apologized for your action, and then you grow from it, you gotta let it go. But also,
mhm,
like, you just have to, like, be okay. Like, you have to come to terms of, like, it is going to be okay. And
yeah,
I'm not gonna do that again. I learned my lesson
and it doesn't
instead of
define
beating
you.
yourself up.
Yeah. I
Like,
always
you
say you need
think,
to experience, express, and validate your emotions, but you don't always need to act on them.
I love that.
And that's why I journal because, like, sometimes, like and, like, my biggest flex recently, because 'cause I've been going through, like, a really so over the last 2 years, I got out of a 10-year relationship that was based off of lies that I didn't know about, and so that, like, finding out that, like, 10 years of your life was I'm sure there was, like, realness in there, but that, like, you were
Mhm,
lied to over 10 years, that really,
mhm.
like, threw myself for a loop. And almost the entire summer, I barely could work, I barely could focus, but my therapist is like, "Get curious about anytime something comes up." And, like, for me, it's like, I wanna, like, scroll social media, or I wanna call a friend, or I wanna eat as a way to avoid being in the emotions. So anytime something would come up, I literally walked around my entire house with my journal, and I would just get really curious about, like, what is actually at the core of this? Why am I feeling uncomfortable? And because of giving myself that time and that grace to do that, now when I get activated by somebody in my life, I'm able to, like, withdraw for a moment and get really curious, and I'm like, "Is it something they said or did, or is it something that, like, this is an insecurity in my life coming from a place that has nothing to do with this?" And learning
Right.
to understand where my emotions are coming from, and then share them in a way of, rather than, like, you did this and it hurt me. It's like, "Hey, when this happens, like, it triggers this inside of me, and I just need you to know." And
Mhm.
it's, such a different it's like a 360 of learning how to communicate with other people and, like, navigate through relationships.
Right. I love that. I mean, obviously, I don't like what happened to you, but I love that you took that and you were able to, like, go through and learn so much because of that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Now you're able to just go with it,
yeah. I mean,
withdraw, take the time you need.
yeah, and I, like, by no means do I feel like we as humans ever, like, quote unquote "arrive." Like, there's always more learning and growing to do, but I understand myself on such a deeper level, and it also gives me a lot more compassion and grace towards what other people are going through, and they who may not have the same awareness about themselves, right?
Yeah.
Like, you see people, like, get angry or, like, flip you off in traffic, and I'm always like, "Oh, they must be having a really hard day." Like, instead of, like, being like, "Who the fuck is giving me the finger in traffic?" I'm like, "Oh," like, because I really believe anger is a mask for deep sadness, deep
I
hurt.
believe that.
Like,
I
generally,
totally believe that.
anger is just a outward expression of deep hurt or sadness, like, misaligned. I think there's, like, times to be like, I even think, like, when I've gotten angry, it's because 'cause I've been hurt or because 'cause I'm really sad. And
Mhm.
so when I see people angry, I'm like, "Oh, they're just, like," it's just like they don't know where to channel it.
Yeah. I
Okay.
know people like that, that's for sure.
Yeah, right?
Mhm.
So, that got deep there for a second, but I love it. I like
I
being
love it.
goofy, I like being really deep, I like, really, like, let's try to, like, find answers to things that don't have answers, like, living
Like,
in
let's
the
just go with
gray,
the
I love.
flow.
But my next question is a little bit lighter, and if you couldn't be in the industry, I feel like you almost answered this earlier. If you couldn't be in the industry, what industry would you go into?
Well, I guess it kinda depends, like, if I could pass college.
Mhm.
If I could, I would definitely be an ASL interpreter, and yeah, that would be so much fun. If other than that, I would be an influencer. I love social media. It definitely has its pros and cons for fucking sure, but I just love it. It's fun, it comes easy to me. There's been a lot of trial and error, but I've always just been very interested in it, just like hair.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as I got into it, I was always still more intrigued.
So would you, if you weren't doing hair online, if you were an influencer, what would you be influencing people towards?
I hmm. Maybe I would just be like a lifestyle or a travel influencer or something like that, if I
Yeah.
had the money to go travel everywhere.
Yeah. Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. Anytime someone, like, starts to use that word with me, I'm like, I'm not, and I don't know, I have such an aversion towards the word influencer, only because, like, I think, like, 2015, like, Starbucks cup and peace sign, like, the
Yeah.
fake, no, I don't wanna say fakeness, but, like, the, um, highlight reel, which I think, like, influencers now are, like, the ones that I connect with anyway are the ones that are real and raw and, like, showing the behind the scenes, which is what I connect to, like, the relatability piece.
I feel like for the longest time, like I've always wanted to be in this place that I'm in. And
Mhm.
I kept calling myself a content creator because I was so embarrassed by the word influencer because I had followed so many people and it was like cringy to me. And I was like, oh my God, I
Mhm.
hope I don't come off like that. And I was always just so worried. And for the longest time, I was like, I am not an influencer. That is not me, because
Yeah.
people make fun of them all the time.
Mhm.
But then I'm just like, seeing videos that are actually very true as an influencer, I
And,
just
like,
started
what a
like,
flex to be able to, like, love what you do and, like, love your life and share it and get paid to do
I
it.
know. And like the fact, like, I follow this guy online. His name's Haters. I don't know if you follow him, but
Mm-mm.
he literally got famous by making fun of influencers. But he's just like this gay guy, and he's just so it's so funny. And it's like, wow, and then I'm like, well, I do that. And I was like, and it's still funny. So it's really like not um like being able to like laugh at yourself and then being
Yeah.
like, okay, well, you know what, forget it, like what it is, an influencer, that is what it is, and
Mhm.
I just have to be okay with it, but I love my job, so it is what it is. I guess you can call me an influencer.
Yeah, it's like owning it and redefining it.
Hmm.
I love that. So okay, this is, like, totally a selfish question because 'cause I'm so curious and it just popped into my
Yeah.
mind, because when I saw you post about getting engaged, backtracking to that, you said you pulled an Uno reverse card and you proposed back. So I right before we started recording, I was talking to my boyfriend, I'm like, "I need to know, was this pre-planned? Like, how are you both ready to propose to each other? Did you
I
know?"
love this question. I love it.
Is that okay
So
to
it's
ask? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love talking about like everything. I'm open book, just
I
like
was like,
you.
"Were you surprised? Was it a surprise? And how did you propose back?"
So, we have been having this like trip for Italy planned for like 10 months, and we had talked. We went to go look at rings, figure out what each other liked, and then I just told her, I was like, kind of surprising around this realm. And then she knew exactly what she liked. So when we were in Puerto Rico, that's where she's from. I, pulled her mom aside and I got her a beautiful Cartier ring. That's what she wanted, thanks to influencing. And I kept it at her mom's house for the longest time because I thought I was going to propose in Italy. And then I thought that's what she was going to do too. And we just kept talking more and more about it. So it just, when that energy, it's like you could feel it's just like getting closer.
We just wanna do
And
this.
then, yeah. And then so I was like going to do it in Tuscany because I asked her if there was any place in the world where would you have a date? She said Tuscany. So I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do that." But then I was like, "That's a week and a half in. It's gonna burn a hole in my pocket." And then I thought we were gonna do this photo shoot in Rome. So I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna do it then." But I was like, "That's so cheesy and cliche." And she kind of already
Oh.
was like, "Are you gonna propose to me?" And I'm like, "Okay, no, I wouldn't be that obvious." Yes, I was gonna be that obvious. And then I was like, "Oh my god, like, people are pickpocketing these days in
Oh,
Italy, and, like,
yeah.
people are stealing inside the hotel." So I was, like, freaking out because I didn't really want I lose everything, and, if I lost that ring, I would never let that go.
Mhm.
So, it was April 19th was my birthday. She, was like, "Hey, like, I have a plan, April 19th, I wanna do, like, a sunrise, and, let's go do something, like, romantic," and I was like, "Okay, cool." She's like, "What are you wearing?" And I'm like, "My my sweats? Like, what do you mean?" She's like, I would wear something, like, probably a little bit more dressed up, like, maybe we'll go somewhere." I was like, "Do
Maybe
you want
go
me
get
to do
your
my"
nails done.
I'm like, "Shit." So, like, I went and got my nails done, and I was like, "I really think that she's doing it." She told me I needed my hair, my makeup. She would probably recommend that. I'm like, "I just have a feeling."
You
So
just
then I talked to multiple people, and they're like, "Kourtnee, um, they said do whatever you want," but they were like, "Why don't you just, like, let it be about you and stop trying to, like, always one up somebody." or like just like let it be about you.
That is but I get it. It's so hard. Like, when I get compliments, I wanna compliment the person back. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want them to feel like I'm, like, being selfish. Yeah.
Yeah, and so but then I talked to her mom about it the day that so anyways, April 19th came, she proposed, and I was like, "I still wanna do it." And so her mom came over and Joe was, like, in the bathroom. I was like, "I really wanna do it. I'm scared I'm gonna lose this ring in Italy." And she was like, "Kourtnee, what do you wanna do?" And her mom's
Mhm,
just she's like my dad, but she's, like, so amazing.
mhm.
And I was like, "I wanna do it today." She's like, "Then do it today." And I was like, "Okay," because we were gonna be with my grandma, my dad, her, and,
Yeah.
like, I had, like, one of my best friends there, and all of a sudden, I was, like, not eating. I was so, like, like, nervous, and I was doing it at the Ponte Vedra Inn and Club because my whole family is known to go there. My It's so important to my grandma and my family.
Mhm.
So, I was getting ready to do it. I was like, "Hey, Joe, like, I wanted to co take a photo with you." And she's like, "No, not right now." And I'm like, "Get up. Like, we're taking a photo right
Mhm.
here." And she's like, "God, okay, bossy." And so when we did it, I was like, essentially like, "Will you marry me?" And she's like, "Wait, I just asked you." I'm like, "Oh my gosh." Like, she doesn't understand. I'm like, "No, I'm asking you. I'm doing a reverse. Like, will you
Yeah.
marry me?" And then I got down on a knee. She was like, "What?" Like, hadn't she thought I was gonna do it in Italy. It was so last minute. I just
Aw.
wanted her to also feel so special and for us to be able to celebrate together
Yeah.
and not have to have that stress in Italy.
Mhm.
So but now I'm all the time like, "Do you like your ring?" Like, so it was good. It was a good day.
That's awesome. I love that. That's really special.
Mhm.
That's so cool. Okay, my selfish question is answered now. 'Cause I
I
was
love
like,
it.
did, like, she propose and then you immediately say, like, "Yes," and then propose back? But there was a time between it.
It like 4 hours, I would say,
That's
in
really
between
cool.
it. That's been
'Cause
a lot of
otherwise,
people's
would you have just
questions.
held on to that ring until your wedding?
No, I was gonna definitely propose to her too because she's a girl, and I'm like, "I want you to feel special," you
Yeah.
know? So I
Love
did.
it. Very cool. Okay, back to my questions. Has there ever been a moment or moments that you thought, "I gotta quit and go do something else"? And if you have, what happened?
Multiple times. I mean, when I first started doing hair, I feel like I knew a lot of people from high school, and then they started coming into me, and it was like the beginning of my career. And I honestly didn't want them to come to me because I
Mm.
knew I wasn't at that level. And I very specifically remember this one time. It was this girl, I really liked her, and I didn't know how to say no. And it was when balayage first started becoming so popular. And I remember I did it, and I I literally was, like, Googling in the back how to balayage. It was so bad. But, yeah, I just remember totally, like, doing a terrible job and her leaving and, like, being like, "Yeah, I'm happy," and I'm like, "You're not happy," you know? And I wanted to quit so bad, and I had no motivation. I had a couple coworkers be like, "No, no, no, you got this," and they kinda, like, helped me through it, and just with more and more practice, it got better, and now I specialize in it, so
I mean, that's the way you get better, right? That's how I always say, like, at when you watch a toddler learn to walk, you don't watch them fall over and go, "You shouldn't try that again, clearly it doesn't come naturally."
Aw.
Right? You go like, "Get
Yeah.
back up, go, go, go," and at what point in life do we stop giving ourselves that permission to fail?
Yeah, why
Like,
do we do that?
if you learn an instrument as a kid, it sounds awful at first. Like learning the piano, you mess up, you have to play it really simply. You're not expecting a kid to just go and play Beethoven right away. You have to work up to it and you have to be willing to
Mhm.
fail. You have to be willing to suck. You have to be willing to be a beginner. And I wonder, and let me know if this rings true to you, is like if we get good at one thing, then we expect ourselves to be able to do other things at the same level from the beginning rather than like if you switch, you pivot, or you like try something new, you have to start at the beginning again. And so being good at hair is great, but then if all of a sudden you're like, I got to get better at social media, you got to work at getting better at social media. Or if you're good at social media and you go into doing hair, like you have to get better at doing hair. It's not like you achieve this level of goodness in something and that transfers to everything else. I just started taking pottery lessons last week. So
Ooh,
fun, but like definitely a beginner.
that's okay.
Yeah. So
I
it's
I understand exactly, like, where you're coming from. Like, I'm gonna teach, like, a 20-minute segment, and I'm like, I know like it's gonna be probably cringe or whatever it is, but I don't really care because I know it's what I wanna do and I'm passionate about it, you
Yeah,
know?
and
Just
be
like with
willing.
pottery.
Right, be willing to suck, be willing to fail. I thought I did pretty good last week in pottery. I'm like, "I think I'm gonna become a potter."
What do you have it with you?
Like
Oh,
my stuff? No, I can show you a picture of it. Hold on. For
I
anyone
wanna
that
see
is
it.
watching this podcast, they will see it. Let me see if I can find
Wait,
it.
watch it be, like, so good and you're just like,
I
"This
I
is
mean, I'm
shitty."
pretty impressed with it. Wait, how does this hold on.
Are you kidding? That looks so good.
Looks like
I knew it. I was like, "She's gonna say it sucks and it's gonna be really good."
I impressed myself, but, like, my hands, I didn't know that, like, the clay is actually really, like, rough. Have you ever done pottery?
Mm-mm.
No, and you, like I, like, have, like, burn marks on the sides of my hands from, like,
Battle
holding.
scars.
I know. Okay, so my next question is, I feel like I'm, like, such a official, person, interviewer, that's the word.
You are.
Um, I did not take my ADHD meds this morning. Got back on them, and I'm like, "I can tell the focus is not there." What has been the biggest obstacle, personally and professionally, that you've had to overcome?
Mm, obstacle.
And also anyone
Mm.
listening, I did not give her these questions ahead of time, so this is, like,
No, so I'm like,
really
"Oh,
making you think? Yeah.
obstacle. Mm,
I'll share mine while you think, because I won't I've definitely put you on the spot. I
it'll
think
spark
so.
in."
What's that?
I said it'll spark my brain.
Oh, I thought you said it's parking, and I was like, "That's a new phrase I've never heard of, parking. Hmm."
Like a Gen Z phrase.
Um, so my big like, personally, my biggest obstacle, like I told you, I was brought up, like, really fundamental Christian evangelical Christian, and I didn't, like, believe in divorce, and I found myself and I remember, like, when I would hear people get divorced after a couple years, I'd be like, "Clearly, they didn't try very hard." And then I found myself getting divorced after 2 years of marriage and being like, the biggest slap in the face of how judgmental I used to be about things
Mhm.
I had no experience with and I knew nothing about. And then the shame I felt of feeling like damaged goods, sloppy seconds, like nobody's gonna want me. And like even still, like I've worked through, I mean, that was I got divorced 12 years ago, 13 years ago. I was married in 2009, divorced in 2011. Anyway, um, how much I had to overcome to believe I was a worthy human being, worthy of, like, love and acceptance, and
Mhm.
that realizing I also didn't believe I was worthy enough, so I, like, got into relationships with people that also didn't believe I was worthy enough, and, like, when
Mhm.
I did the biggest obstacle for me personally was overcoming the belief that I wasn't good enough, and now that I have this self-worth, this self-respect, and this self-trust, the friends, the relationships, and the connections that I attract are people who also see that in me and treat me accordingly, which is really cool. So that's
I
my
love that.
personal obstacle that I've overcome.
I love that. I think I'm gonna go on, like, that same thing of, like, worthiness. I feel like with pricing, that was, like,
Mm,
so hard for me for the longest time, and now I feel like people compliment me all the time on that. They're like, "Wow, you just, like, don't give a fuck." I'm like, "Oh, I do. I just" like, I know what I have to bring to the table now. Like, I have these bills. I have to make money. I want to be able to have fun. I want to be able to like have a baby and go through I have to go through IVF. Like
mhm,
these are things that I have to do for my family. And
yeah,
like it's not a personal thing. I took every I mean, there's times where I still do. I've it's always been a um something to work on to take things personal. But like the
mhm,
older I get, the less I take things personal. I used to be like,
mhm,
it's this much money, and I would always feel so bad because they would tell me like, "Oh, like I've been saving up for blah blah blah," blah. And I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm the shittiest human being. Like, how dare I charge you
yeah.
$400 for a 4 hour service?" You know?
It's like feeling like you have to accommodate other people and at the detriment of yourself.
Yeah, and like now, I'm just like, no, this is like what it is. And
Good for you.
honestly, now when I'm very forward like that, they don't ever question me or anything. But the moment that I was like questioning my own self all the time, 24/7, is when people would be like, no, it's too much, you know? And back then it was way cheaper. So,
Yeah. I find, like, the moment that I stopped, like, being like, "Is it okay?" Or, like, "It's gonna be this much," and being like, "Hey, I just need to let you know that it's this much," and being, like, straightforward and direct and, like,
Mhm.
not wavering, and then letting them, like, accept or reject it, and not having their acceptance or rejection have any sort of personal, like, "If you don't wanna pay this much, that doesn't mean I'm not worth it, just means you don't value it, and that's okay."
Yeah. If you think that $400 is, like, worth it. I mean, there's some people that are like, "Listen, like, I want to be able to do this, I just don't have the money, and I think that you're totally worth it." And then,
Yeah,
a year
that's what I
later,
really
they come
appreciate
to
those
me.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, and you also I don't get very many, but I, get them every once in a while that's like, "Wow, like, I can't believe that." I'm like, "That's totally fine too." Like, I don't it's not
Mhm,
personal, like, I know what my worth is now, and I
mhm,
feel like so many people are, like, so hyped on the, know your worth," and it's like, it's more than that. It's like knowing your worth, but also, like, giving them a really good experience in a service, and I
mhm.
know that your experience and service is going to be worth that amount of money.
Yeah, and, like, really learning yeah, like, I just wrote down take things personally, like, so often we get offended by people's response because we take it personally when it has nothing to do with us as a person, it's just their own decision. People can decide to do business with us or not, or see the value in spending like, I drive a 2008 Volkswagen Golf because I
Mhm.
don't value a new car, and I live inner city, so I don't drive a lot. Am I gonna go to the dealership and, like or is, like, the brand new, Ford Bronco being like, "I suck because Don won't buy me," right? Like, no, it's because I
Yeah,
don't value it. It doesn't mean the value of that or the worth of that is any less or a brand new car isn't worth it. It's just that don't feel the need. And, like,
yeah.
same with our services,
Like, I would rather spend that money to go travel or to save to
right?
buy a house. I paid off my car and I'm driving that, and my wife is like, um, like, "I want a new car eventually." I'm like, "I'll take yours whenever, you go buy your new car," because to me, like, she keeps it very, like, perfect, like, OCD beautiful in there, and I'm like, "I'll just take yours." Like, I don't feel the need to go buy a new car.
No,
I don't
same.
feel it.
But, like, does it mean that someone who does is, like, better or worse? No, and, like, I don't like, my car, I think, has, like, 160,000 kilometers, and it's a 2008, like, very low I don't know how much that is in miles. There's my Canadian coming out.
I
But,
know.
like, really, really low mileage on it, and it's like, yeah, it's not worth it for me, but if I was commuting all the time, absolutely, and so learning, like, to take clients' reactions, although it may feel personal, to, like, remind yourself to, like, remove it and, like, this isn't a personal rejection.
Right.
Okay, one last question before we wrap this up is well, 2, it's a two-parter. Do you believe, yes or no, that in order to grow, you have to get uncomfortable?
Mm, depends, I guess, on the way you look at it.
Or I guess my question is, how do you push yourself into the discomfort of growth? Or how do you keep yourself growing when it's so easy to stay in your comfort zone?
Oh god, I totally wanna be comfortable all the time, but I think I want it so bad that I'm willing to go through the pain and uncomfortableness and embarrassment in order to get to what I want. I've always just been very, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna go get it. I don't care how hard it is. Like, if I want it, eyes on the prize. I know
Right,
not everybody's like that.
right.
Um, so I can understand how hard that can be, and people tend to give up really easily, like, for example, social media or, um, for me, what I'm talking about is teaching. Like, I it's so uncomfortable. I don't feel comfortable being up in front of 30, 40, hundreds of people at
Really?
all. No. Oh my gosh, no.
You're
I
like,
like
"Eh."
I'm like, "Oh, I'm freaking out about it now
So
just
have you
thinking
done
about
it
it."
yet?
No.
No, but do you have a desire to?
Yeah. I feel like there's a calling for me to help people. I love helping people. I love teaching people. I have a fear of, somebody looking at me. Have you ever been in one of those classes where they're just like,
Oh, yeah.
and I'm like, oh my God, she fucking hates me? But
Mhm,
then you have to realize, I guess, like, I have a couple of people like Adrian Dara, Jamie C. Official from Pretty Little
mhm.
Ombre. and Sammy Skinner, they're just kinda, like, giving me, like, the best tips, and they're like, "Kourtney, like, they pay to come see you. It's not like you're working for one of those brands and then commission salons are, like, feeding you random classes that you have to go to. Like, they're paying to come see you, and
Yeah.
if they don't that like, it's not a personal thing, like, you are doing the best that you can."
And I always
So,
say, like, we will interpret things through the ears of insecurity. So someone might
mhm,
just be, like, really tired and, like, sitting there, like, soaking it all in with a straight face, and you're like, "They hate me," because you fear that they hate you. And I remember
yeah,
one of the first things I spoke at was Ember Retreat, hosted by Jamie Dana and Piper DeYoung, and there was, like,
mhm,
40 people, which is a small enough crowd that you can see everyone's faces. Like, I would
uh-huh.
prefer to speak in front of hundreds of people because they kind of all blur together.
Okay.
Smaller group is harder for me because I can see everyone's faces, and I remember 2 girls starting to talk and then starting to laugh, and I was like, "It's about me." And it likely wasn't, right? And, like, now if that happens because, like, people don't realize how loud their whispers are, I'll be like, "Hey, you guys, I'll just get you to stop chatting. It's actually quite distracting and hard for me to keep talking up here because I have the confidence now." But also, like, seeing somebody, like, stand up and walk out of a room that you're speaking in, it's like you
Mhm.
really have to develop that thicker skin, right? And, like, know
Yeah,
that I am worthy. People like, even if one person gets something from this out of this 500, it was worth it.
yeah. And I
Yeah.
wanna grow, like, I want to be the best that I can, like, the best version
Mhm.
of myself, and I know if I just keep doing this, I'll keep growing and gaining that thicker skin and working through insecurities, because, right now, yeah, I'm scared of, what people are gonna think on me. On social media, I don't really care as much because, like, I don't see them, but in person, like, you see it. So, I think, after a year from today, I'll won't feel that anymore.
Totally.
Hopefully. So,
Absolutely. You'll feel something else.
yeah,
There'll be a new level.
and then to work on that, and so it's really, like, being able to say my fears and, it's just
Mhm.
normal. Like, so many other people probably still feel this way about teaching, but they have new perspectives and mindsets, and I think the biggest thing is I have really good, mentors around me.
Mhm.
Adrienne Dara was she's so busy with her lifestyle and to, like, really take the time out of her day to send me voice memos and just give me, like, little tidbits, and Sammy has just been, like, exponentially amazing. Like, she came over to my house and it's like, hey, like, listen, ABC, like, this is going to happen. Here's what you're going to do. Here's how to, shift your perspective. I still get like this. It's
Mhm.
just been so refreshing just to hear where it's not like egotistical, you know?
Yeah, 2024, I've told myself drop the ego, and, like, the ego can be sneaky because it can it's not always, like, egotistical looking. It's, like,
Mhm.
convincing yourself, like, "Oh, you're a kind person, like, be the kind person," or try to convince this person that they're wrong like, that, like, "No, you misunderstood," where, like, instead for me, it's, like, scrolling by the mean comments,
Yeah,
not engaging with them, trying to convince them that I'm worthy or that, "Oh, you misunderstood," and it's like, "No, like, just leave it, Dawn."
exactly.
Yeah. Okay,
Find that a little
well,
bit easier.
yeah, I did flub up. I have one more question. If you had to pick between chicken nuggets or nachos, which one would you pick?
It depends on where.
Right. Okay, so
Um,
right in this moment, and you could pick from anywhere.
the way that my wife makes nachos is like the shit. Gosh, why is this like life or death for me?
I love it. I love it.
I'm gonna say nachos because you can switch it up,
Yeah, more
and
variety.
I get bored easily. I can't believe I just said
Mhm.
that.
ADHD,
Yeah,
we gotta switch things up. I love it.
I know.
Courtney, this has been so fun getting to know you better. I hope that you can
I
come back on the podcast a year from now and we can share all the things you've achieved.
That would be so fun. Thank you so much for having me and,
Yeah.
like, just being yourself. I can tell, like, online you see one thing, but I always knew that you'd be the same person that you are, like, online, and I don't feel like there's any, like, competitiveness, no ego. I feel like you can truly be yourself, like, with
Oh,
you.
good.
So thank you for being, like, a safe space.
Always. Safe space in a judgment-free zone is well, my therapist said to me once, "Do you think the reason why you've developed a community where it's safe and judgment-free is because 'cause you've never had that yourself?" And I was like, right? Like, oh, like, everything I've done is born out of my trauma.
I mean, but did it do us well?
Yeah,
Probably.
totally, but also, okay, this is like I'm, like, going off on a tangent one last time, but, like, I used to be so motivated by the external validation I would receive from people I helped, so, like, I would get a DM like, "Don, I made double my income than I did last year because of Rock Your Business," which is my signature program, or, like, "I was able to fire this client that I never would have been able to stand up to," or, "I raised my prices and wasn't apologetic about them," and, like, that I thrived on because it made me feel like a worthy human, and now that I've learned that I am worthy with, like, even if I don't help a single person, the I love hearing the validation, but I don't need it to motivate me. But now I'm like, I don't know what motivates me. And I've been going through this whole, like, I'm turning 41 in a couple weeks. And like 40s is like a weird, like, I mean, I went through like a massive breakup. Like my life is like ton of 360. And I'm like, I need to figure out, like, I'm not being motivated by the need to be needed. So how do I get myself going? And
Ooh,
it's a mind fuck, let me tell you.
because 'cause you're like, "Where do I go? What do I do? Who am I doing?" Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's
And
a
I'm like, it's an honor to serve. And I'm so, it's still like, it makes my day to know that what I created and how I share has helped people and changed their lives. But it's not a need for me. Like, I know that you strip everything away from me, I am a worthy human being. And it's a really powerful thing to have healed. But then also, I'm like, oh, this has fucked up my career a little bit.
but now, like, you know how they say 30s is the best? I'm like, "Is 40s gonna be the best?"
Yes. It's called the no fuck 40s, I call it. And it's like,
Ooh.
Kourtnee, like the level of confidence you get, and like for me, like the ability to speak my truth and be like, this is what I need, this is what I want, take it or leave it, and being willing to be like, if someone like leaves it, that's cool. That's confirmation that like they're not the right client, they're not the right friend, they're not the right partner, because like I know that I'm allowed to need and want what I need and want. And if
Right.
someone doesn't want that, that's okay. Doesn't make them a bad person. It just means that we're not the right connection for each other. And so where before I would bend and mold and adapt to what I thought I was supposed to be for everyone else, because
You're
I had
working on
this
that.
need, I needed the external validation to feel worthy. And so as long as I could like chameleon myself into what everybody else thought I could was, which meant like with my church friends I was this way, with my party friends I was this way, with like whatever boyfriend I had at the time I was like whatever he like, you know what I mean? And for my family this way, and then being like, no, I'm me, and I need to stop abandoning myself, and I need to love and accept myself first and foremost. And then whoever wants to come along with me, if that works with them, great. And it's been like, seriously, give no fucks. Like, I still give a little bit of fucks, but the power of being able to quote unquote stand in your truth, speak your truth, and be able to set your non negotiables and be okay with, like, hey, I love you. You're great, but this is where our journey ends.
Oh, that's so
Powerful.
inspiring. I feel like I'm in the middle of that, like I'm
Mhm.
not in the beginning, but I feel like I'm in the middle, so I can't wait till I get to that point,
You
which
will.
is so exciting, like hearing that and because we're so similar in that all that aspect. So it's
Mhm.
nice to hear it from the other side that's like, you'll get there and it's gonna be so like empowering.
Yeah, it'll fuck
That's
you up
very
in the best way
inspirational.
possible.
I love it. I love it.
Kourtnee, how can people connect with you?
You can connect with me through Instagram and TikTok on The Color Chemist, and color is COLOUR because the other
Oh,
one was taken.
well,
And
that's
that's okay. I
very,
actually like
very
it better.
Canadian of you, because that's
I
how we
know.
do the British version.
Am I secretly like Canadian?
Probably. I've had a lot of people tell me, like, over the past few elections, they're like, "Get your spare room ready. I might be moving to Canada." So all my American friends are welcome.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
okay, well, everybody go give Kourtnee a follow, DM her and let her know that you listened to this episode. Let her know what I'm gonna say, let her know what your favorite part of the episode was. And
All
Kourtney,
right.
congrats again on your engagement. When do you know what your wedding date is?
I think we're gonna push it out till January 2026. I have a lot of goals, career goals,
Mhm.
like with education and stuff like that. And I want to be able to focus on that and the wedding instead of just being like wedding, you
Right.
know? So stick to my boundaries.
Love that. Well, when
Yes,
that day comes, it's gonna be amazing, and I can't wait to see it.
I'm excited. Thank
Thank
you,
you so
Dawn.
much.
It was so good to talk to you.
Well, there you you have it, friend. Another episode of the Anxious Creative Podcast because of you. Thank you so much for tuning in. It means the world to me. And if you want to dive deeper into communication, boundaries, and confidence, go check out my website, dawnbradley.com, for all the resources and programs that can help you build the life, business, and bank account you've always dreamed of. You're worth it, friend. And I'm just so honored and thankful for you to be here and to be part of this community so we can show up real, raw, honest, and vulnerable together, sharing in our failures and our successes because it's all part of the journey. It's all part of it. And so I want you to be able to take messy, immediate, imperfect action going out from this podcast episode into the world today and have a wonderful, wonderful day. But most importantly, stay weird, friend. And we'll see you next time.